Thank you. Hey, we're live.
Hey, we're live.
We're live.
Good morning.
Good morning. Another Friday, another Q&A SNL show.
Scott and
Lane. And thank you so much for the questions that we received over the week. We put together several of them. But if you're joining us live, please don't be afraid to ask us questions, and we can put them up on the screen and answer them right away. And also, if you like what you hear and you think that there's somebody else should hear, some of our answers to your questions, share it. Tag them. Do whatever you can to spread the word.
Absolutely. We really appreciate that. We're providing these shows for you, and the questions that we're answering have been curated throughout the week, and we want them to be topical. If you have ideas for questions for next week's, please let us know. And remember, these shows are recorded, so they are available, again, with what one of our passions is to be the definitive real estate resource.
Absolutely. That's very well said. Well, should we get to it? Should we get to the first question?
Let's go.
All right. What's happening with Orange County home prices this week?
That's the question everybody has been asking me when they see me out getting coffee or whatever. I get that question asked probably 5 times a day. I don't know about you, Lane, but I know you're prepared with the answers, Mr. Stats Guy. Let's hit them.
I mean, I am prepared with the answers. And yes, we ask this question very frequently because everybody wants to know what their home's worth, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about it. The last 7 days, we had 189 closings in Orange County with an average price of a little over 1.1 million. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at the week prior to see how things, differed. There were 164 closings, so there were less closings the week prior, and then an average close price of a little over $1 million, so $100,000 difference there. And then the week, but even before that, going back several weeks now, there were 154 closings, average price of a little over $1 million as well. So what we're actually seeing as far as trends, as far as the number of closings and the average price, the number of closings are ticking up. So that means there's more sales in the real estate marketplace now, and it's continuing to rise. And then we're also seeing the average close price starting to tick up continually right now as well.
I love that. Hey, Lane, thanks so much for those stats. So given that, what do you think we would be seeing moving forward 1 week, 2 weeks from now?
Ooh, 1 to 2 weeks from now? I mean, I think we're going to get something very similar. I think you're going to see maybe close to 200 closings, maybe a little more than 200 closings in Orange County. And then still, I think the prices are still going to be hovering a little over 1.1 million as far as the average in Orange County. Obviously, depending on where you live in Orange County, those stats might differ. But I think Orange County is a great sample size for all of our clients. And yes, I think it's a good start of a broad look into what the real estate market's doing.
Absolutely. And then in closing out that question, we can say just kind of anecdotally from our own team perspective, from the ground zero view, we're seeing our clients wanting to move forward. They're excited to go look at properties. Those folks that are wanting to put their homes on the market are now saying, you know what, let's do it. Let's get on to the next chapter. And again, the more people that continue to put themselves into the mix, the better it's going to be for all concerned.
Hey, Scott, before we get into the next question, we do have a live question.
Yes.
I think we should throw that up on the screen as well. And I think you're very well suited to answer this question because you yourself own income property.
I sure do. And that's a great question. Welcome to the call, Patricia. Glad to see you here today. I own rental property. Yes, I do. And many of our clients do. And we also manage a handful of properties. Patricia and her husband, Lee, are great past clients of ours, and we are managing one of your homes for you. I feel very bullish about this, and I'm going to even step back. I have some clients, some very good friends of mine moving here from Florida. One of them is a doctor getting a new position in the Lakewood, Long Beach area. We've been helping them a little bit look at rental properties. They have been researching for about a month, and all the rental properties they've looked at, and these are nice homes in the $3,000 to $4,500 a month range, from Palos Verdes all the way down to Newport Beach. They had a pretty big range. But real quick, this is a boots on the ground example. Everything they were looking at was going off the market within 1 to 2 weeks. They got here, they had 12 properties to look at. There wasn't one of those properties they looked at that there weren't a minimum of 6 applications on. They were able to get one right on Belfast Lane in Huntington Beach, which near Bellaterra, which I know is right in your area, Patricia. So I'm going to use that as an example. That happened just this week, 2 days ago. And I'm going to look at that as a microcosm for what's moving forward. The demand seems to be very high, and I would feel quite good about that. I would say the only thing would be perhaps in the the lower end spectrums, the people that are in the service industries and so forth that have been hit a little bit harder from this. That area might weaken up a little bit if some of those young folks were to move back home. But then I've also heard things where with stimulus and so forth, a lot of these folks are still making decent money. So I'm feeling very strong about it. I hope that answer helps you out a little bit. And we're always here to answer personal questions off camera if we need to.
All right, that sounds good. Well, going back to Orange County home prices, you asked 2 weeks from now, right? 2-3 weeks from now. But how about the next question? Because I saw the next question just pop up right now. Where do you see Orange County?
Oh, there we go. Okay.
6 months from now. That's a little bit further down the road.
Absolutely. And I would say again, an arbiter of the future sometimes is looking at the past and where the trends have gone. Again, we've been thrown a complete loop in what would ordinarily be our spring selling season leading into summer over the last 3 months. But Lane, again, with the stats if you compiled and the folks that our brokerage talks to, again, we're connected with brokers across the country in markets similar to ours and learning every day from what they're seeing and what they're projecting. What do we see, Lane?
So I'm not even really looking into stats on this question, to be honest with you, other than the fact that what we do know is inventory is brutally low right now, and it's been really low for a very long time. And what might change prices if we do see a little bit of an increase in inventory down the road, but I don't see that happening. What happened in the last recession, and because there was so much inventory available, home prices went down. There were a lot of distressed property sales. There was a lot of short sales, foreclosures, and all that. So this time, with the issuance of forbearance and being able to maybe push your payment down the road a little bit or come up with a payment plan with your lender, a lot of people are able to save their home, stay in their home. So those distressed property sales are not going to be coming on the market. Right now in Orange County, we have a month supply of inventory in the low 2s, which is way, way low and considered a seller's market. So even if we doubled inventory, it's still going to be a neutral market. And then prices will stay stagnant. So I think if inventory stays brutally low, and it looks like our spring selling season is being pushed to the summer, and because we're really feeling everything heat up right now, that I do think 6 months from now, you're going to see prices a little bit higher than where they are now.
One other thing I'd like to add too, Lane, that gives credence to your fact about the distressed sales. We're seeing that home equity right now is at all-time highs in the 33 years that I'm in the business. That means there's a larger percentage of people that have over 50% equity in their homes. There's also a higher percentage of people whose homes are paid off 100%. So people have that ability to weather this storm a little bit better and be able to make those moves out of wishes versus needs. And that will also keep the inventory down. And again, inventory and supply and demand is all based on the number of homes for sale and the demand that's out there. The other thing is we have been in a very strong seller's market, as we've mentioned on previous calls, with 10, 12 offers per property within the first week on average in our coastal Orange County marketplaces. We're still seeing multiple offers, but they're in the 2 to 3 range. And that coupled with what Lane said, the supply of the supply of homes out there, we still see an edge to the sellers, and that would continue to mean that prices will stay strong.
Yeah, and Scott was mentioning, like the people having a ton of equity in their homes right now, and we were talking about stats on what's happening in the Orange County marketplace. I have to give a little bit of a plug to one of our landing pages that we created, sackandstoneteam.com/coronavirus. Maybe Steve can put it up in the chat box or the comment box for us. But basically, everything that we're talking about is housed there. So feel free to, and we keep it up to date. So feel free to go check it out. All the stats are up there, all the latest news, everything that we're talking about right now should be updated and current on that site.
And it is updated weekly. And I want to give a great shout out to Stipe Lasik, our producer of this show and our marketing and technology director. And there, he just put that up on the screen. So grateful for everything you've done for us, Stipe, to help us present these shows and hopefully add value to our clients. And again, please check out the page. These guys take a tremendous amount of time and effort and passion in making sure that we are providing up-to-the-minute information for you. Even if you never move again, this is a comfortable place you can go to feel that you've got the facts.
Absolutely. What do we have next? Where are interest rates this week?
Lane, why don't you take that one as well?
Sure. Interest rates this week are kind of where they were last week and the week before. You can go as low as about 3.25% to up to 3.75%, depending on your loan amount and obviously your credit score. We did hear of some clients that were able to get in the 3 to 3.125% range this last week. So definitely connect with a lender if you're thinking about refinancing or purchasing, so that way they can give you proper instruction on if it's a good time to lock in your interest rate now, or maybe wait and float it down the road. We do know some lenders that we work with, even if you lock in now and let's say rates dramatically drop, they will let you float down your rate one time. So definitely get with somebody who you know, like, and trust, or get with us and we can give you a great referral for somebody who can help you out. But yeah, that's kind of where rates are right now.
Absolutely. And we're not seeing any huge indications that we'll see a gigantic spike in the near future. But again, that's not an industry that we control. It's we can control our service model, but we can't control what's happening outside. But again, I think Lane said, just like we're the trusted real estate advisors, it's always best to get a trusted mortgage advisor as well. And if you have someone, that's awesome. If you need a referral, we're happy to do that for you.
Yeah, very well said. All right, what's next? Do you see traditional open houses coming back? Ooh, good question.
This is a great question. And as Lane and I were preparing for today's show, we spent about 15 minutes, and I'll say, bantering back and forth about this. We're
Hopefully
on the same
it doesn't take that long this time.
No, absolutely. And it's a really, really tricky question. And I'm going to just start out by saying the word traditional would kind of lead us to think exactly the way they were before. And I would say that answer would be no. I think open houses will return because it's a great vehicle for sellers to be able to expose their house. It's a great way for potential buyers to be able to see a home without having to have a constrained appointment set and so forth. So it's a shopping and viewing venue that benefits both sides. But from a traditional standpoint, where we're just advertised and it's a free for all, so to speak, where people just come and go, that's going to be changing. Lane, why don't you go ahead and detail what our thoughts are with some of the things that we're seeing from the people that we're talking to that are higher up than we are?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you really just don't know. From what I'm gathering, traditional open houses coming back, I don't think anytime soon, to be honest with you, because when the last spring, for example, if we would have an open house and the price was right and there was a hot property, we would be wall to wall full of people inside the home. And that's just simply not going to happen anymore. We were talking about maybe one day the open house might be a very similar approach to what you see for new home builds, in the sense that maybe you have to set an appointment, or there's like one, maybe two parties at max at one time going through the home. So it's not going to be a crazy influx of people. And we kind of like that. And I know our sellers are liking that too, because it's really limiting the looky-loos going through the home. So you're not going to have a bunch of neighbors coming through to take a look at what you did for the kitchen remodel. The people that are hopefully coming through moving forward at open houses are your most qualified buyers. And that's one thing that we're actually looking forward to and grateful, I guess, if you will, for considering all the current circumstances of what led us to this point. But I don't think traditional open houses will be back anytime soon.
And I think what you can count on for our viewers and our clients today is, just as we were able to pivot with virtual tours and so forth when this market changed, which is a question coming up soon, you can count on the Sack and Stone team to be on the forefront of information gathering from across the country, across the state, from the CAR, the NAR, so that whatever things do evolve, we'll pivot and be on the forefront so that we can provide our sellers with the best open house opportunities to expose their homes the best way, but also with rules and guidelines and safety measures in place.
And if we have an idea that we think would benefit the local marketplace, we're not afraid to go to our board and ask for that. And some of the rules that have been changed are because of some of the ideas that we've come up with, and we've worked with our executive team.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that we have been able to affect some change in our local marketplace just because of things that we thought about. So I'll toot our horn, and Lane especially came up with a fantastic idea right after all this started, which has allowed our local market to be able to continue to expose homes to the marketplace. So kudos to you, Lane. And again, I think as we wrap up this question, we don't have the answers yet. As you can see, the overview is the traditional open houses, as we've seen in the past, will probably not come back. Will some sort of a hybrid modified approach for folks to be able to see homes outside of a strict one-on-one showing appointment evolve? We think so. So just
what's really interesting too is if you go to any sign companies right now, they're not really making traditional open house signs. They're making virtual open house signs. So it's really interesting to see that even agents are starting to adapt to maybe a virtual open house approach.
You know what, Lane, you're absolutely right on that. And I think that, again, evolution is the key. And the virtual open houses are nice, and they are a vehicle that are really giving people that that step in the door, and then they can use that to follow up and get an appointment if they want to.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's next? Okay, Diane has a question. How has the escrow process changed at all? And how does a buyer and seller sign documents?
What a fantastic question, Diane, because again, we know, as you can see from this show, Lane and I are working from home right now. We've settled into our home office. Catalina Cruz, our director of client care, has an amazing office set up in her home. But what we do know is that the escrow companies are fully functional. They've been able to put their escrow teams in place in a safe environment to be able to work. The documents pretty much now, instead of the packages going out in writing, are done via DocuSign. For those of our clients that would prefer to sign in person, the escrow companies are also preparing the packages, and they've got a very safe mail pickup and drop off situation set up right outside the offices. So if we do have absolute paper documents, there's a way that we can pick up and deliver those safely. We also have the mobile notaries are in place now. So instead of coming into the offices for those documents that need to be notarized, the mobile notaries are coming to the clients. And most often, they're sitting in an environment that's comfortable for all. I actually refinanced my house during all of this, and we signed our final loan document sitting out on my front patio. The notary was amazingly professional, of course, with sanitized pen, the mask, everything that you would expect from a protocol today, just like you would see if you were in the supermarket or going to your own bank. So that's a fantastic question. I would say the process has changed a bit, but the level of customer service and the flow and the timing has not changed. We've just pivoted. We've adapted, like so many of the other industries, to make it work safely and efficiently for the clients and the escrow company involved. Hope that answers your question, Diane.
Yeah, no, I have to really give a big shout out to one of our preferred escrow companies, Advantage One, because they've really transitioned and made the process hands-free, easy. I was in the same boat as you, Scott, where I was refinancing. We used Advantage One escrow. When we had to sign documents, we set up in my garage. I put out a 6-foot table, and we sat on each end of the 6-foot table.
Yeah.
And that was at the peak of everything going on. And they made the process very, very smooth, and we were able to close on time. Actually, we were able to close even early on this one. So it's no hiccups and a very easy hands-free process.
Yeah. And as we close that quick question, Diane, and thanks so much for asking that, I think Lane hit a great point. I want to stress, we have experience, most of our experiences with Advantage One, which is the preferred escrow provider we use. So all the examples I've just given you are the procedures that we've experienced with them. If any of you folks are refinancing and using escrow companies that have been chosen by your lender or whatever, I do want to give a little caveat, is I don't know how they're approaching things. But in our world, we've seen no hiccups, no change in the level of service or the flow for our clients. And we're really grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Stipe, what's next? How effective are virtual tours? Very effective.
They're very effective. And I'll tell you something about the virtual tours is we were very fortunate to have implemented virtual tours months before the current situation came about. And we know a lot of our competitors were kind of left scrambling when all of a sudden it's like, well, we've got to start doing virtual tours to get clients and people into homes. We were adding it as part of our value proposition and making it one of the tools in our tool belt, so to speak, or an arrow in our quiver to help our clients out. So we felt that we were had a bit of a leg up, and that was lucky us, lucky for our clients. Lane, elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we use Matterport, and I know that we're starting to look into another company called Astroom as well. But what I really like about what we do as far as creating these virtual tours is we set up a link where we can monitor the activity level on these virtual tours as well. So we're noticing on some of our listings that we're getting at more than 400 views and more than 400 tours, which is great because not only are they looking at our photos, our videos, they're actually touring the home really without having to step inside the home. So we know now that when they schedule an appointment to see the home, that they've already basically been inside through the virtual tours. And what's really cool about Matterport is you can measure heights of ceilings, countertops, width and length of the room. So that way you can get a really good idea of the size without even being inside. So again, it really limits the looky-loos. All the people that are looking and scheduling in-person appointments now are absolutely your most qualified and motivated buyers. So it's really been great to implement all these virtual tours here. And I'm really excited to see the number of people actually visiting these 3D tours. I mean, we're getting hundreds of people visiting our 3D tours for all of our listings.
And you know what, Lane, you're absolutely right with that. And I think one of the great things is the virtual tour gives something for everyone, because that visual person gets to see that kind of dollhouse view where you have the overview of the house, and they say dollhouse view because it looks like a dollhouse like my sister had when we were kids. And you can see every room, how it relates to itself. So it's not just walking through and winding your way through a house. You get to see that overhead view and really get a feel for the floor plan. So I think one of the reasons we're getting so much engagement on these is it's a tool that no matter how someone's brain works, it's got something for them to give them a feel of the home to say, hey, you know what, I'd like to see more. I'd like to schedule a personal appointment to see that house or not. So it's a great exposure tool for our clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're enjoying them, and we're going to continue to use them.
Absolutely. Oh, they're in for the long haul.
All right. What's next? Oh, from my mom. If people start to default on mortgages connected to VRBO and Airbnb properties, will there be some deals available? And that's actually a really interesting question, because we can think about, secondary markets, right? What are secondary home markets doing for people that own second or third homes or vacation rentals and all that? Do you think areas like Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, Palm Springs, or I don't know, anywhere in Southern California where people have second homes, do you think that might be affected a little bit differently than maybe primary home markets?
I think that's a great question, Lane. And I'm not tongue-tied, but I love the question Eileen has raised. And I had not thought about that, but I think to your point, these the VRBO Airbnb properties, oftentimes they are second homes for folks, where it's a way that they've decided that they can make financially viable having a second home or a vacation home, where they're using it for so many weeks or months out of the year, and then the rest of the time they've probably budgeted to rent it out to the overnight guests to help meet their costs. And if that market is changing, that's going to limit their ability to afford the house, which could mean there are going to be some sales in those areas.
So we have a personal example too. Gary on our team, he owns a new home in Big Bear. And he goes through vacation rentals. And I think, for a long period of time, he wasn't able to rent it out. But now I believe starting this weekend, he's able to start renting it out, and they have to practice safe guidelines as far as the home has to sit vacant for 3 days and you have to clean it and all that good stuff. But, I think to answer my mom's question, as far as default on mortgages, banks aren't really defaulting on any mortgages right now at all. They're allowing forbearances, and you're not putting anybody through foreclosure, really. So I don't see any of these secondary homes defaulting, at least in the short run, just because they can probably put stuff in place with their bank to either push their payment down the road into a balloon, restructure their payments. But maybe does it affect the secondary market as far as people purchasing right now? It might. I think right now, because we live in Orange County, where a lot of people, most people are living here that their homes are primary. I don't see it affecting Orange County, but maybe other areas in secondary markets.
Yeah. And I think we'll close that out. I think if we want to directly address Eileen's question at the very last is, will there be some deals available? I'm going to tend to say probably not in the short term anytime soon, because as Lane mentioned, with every industry, in the hospitality industry, everyone wants to get back to some sort of, maybe not business as usual, but back into the business of accommodating people as they travel about the country. And we know there's a need and a want to still be able to do that. And the rules are just changing, as Lane said, with sanitizing the homes, having them sit vacant and so forth. Whether it's going to a restaurant, going to a hotel, going to an Airbnb, with revised rules and guidelines, I believe that the homeowners, who are the hosts, they're going to pivot and work with these guidelines to be able to get back to business. And in closing, the demand is there. The demand is there.
I think people want to change the pace too, honestly, and to get out of town. Because the second that, I'm just using Gary as a personal example, the second that Gary was able to rent out on a vacation rental again, his place, it was booked within 2 seconds. So I think there's a lot of people itching to get out there and just get it to a different atmosphere. And
I'm going to close out one quick thing, because Eileen just raised a great question here. And again, you can see a lot of our answers, viewers, are based on our own experience, because we're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of people, past clients all the time. So I think our team's a pretty good microcosm of what's going on. And to that point, just when I was out and about this last few days, talking to people that are in my inner circle, service providers, whatnot, 3 different folks said, you know what, this is a holiday weekend coming up. We're just getting in the car and we're going. One of them said they're going up the coast of Carmel. Another one said we're going to head over the border into the Phoenix area, which is just 6 hours away. And they're figuring it out. They're knowing that things have changed with regards to lodging and whatnot, but they're just going. The yen is still there. The travel spirit is in place, and I think that portends something pretty positive for these folks with these rentals.
All right. Do we have any more? Who's buying and selling in Orange County?
Oh my goodness.
So I guess like if you think about the sellers that you're working with right now, Scott, like what are they moving out of state? Are they retiring? Are they moving up to bigger homes right now? What would you say you're working with mostly? Let's
take a quick little example. It's a great question, Lane. We've got a home that just went under contract in the Old Town area of Orange, for example. This was a home that was bought by a client of ours. 5 years ago, actually, and it was used as a home for his kids who were going to Chapman University. And they and a couple of other students rented that house out. The kids have graduated now, and it was time to sell the home. So there's one example. It's kind of a unique situation, but I'll tell you, we got that house under contract within 1 week, and it's a similar type of buyer to who he was. It's someone who is going to be putting their kids in the house and going to rent out a few other rooms and make it. So the demand was there for that. That worked. We have another client who's going to be putting her home on the market. She's going to be moving out to the Flagstaff, Arizona area to retire. She's already purchased a home there and is moving on with that next phase of life. That's a big portion of our business that we're seeing is we've got a lot of baby boomers. They're becoming empty nesters, and they're in the position where they have the equity over the years, and they're saying, we don't want to let this change our timeline, and we want to continue on with the plans to move and move on with our lives. Yeah. That's a couple of that we have, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I've got about half a dozen others I could talk about. But Lane, give us a little tidbit or insight into your clients right now.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the buyers that I'm working with right now. So yeah. I'm working with a couple different. So actually, I'm working with a lot of first-time home buyers, I think. And I think a lot of people that have stable jobs that didn't have to be furloughed and they're still working and they want to get into home ownership. And maybe they felt that it was difficult because of the competitive marketplace. Honestly, it hasn't gotten that much better and inventory is still really low, but I think you have a little bit of a better chance at maybe trying to get, if you're like maybe a 3.5 FHA buyer, 5%, 10% down conventional, you might have a better chance of getting an offer accepted. So you're definitely seeing a lot of first-time home buyers getting into the marketplace again. Yes. I'm also helping out somebody that's getting a bigger home. They're getting a family. They're starting a family and they're selling their condo and they're buying a bigger house right now. So there's wants and needs, and a lot of people are buying based off of needs because they might be feeling that the backyard's a little too small or the house is a little too small these days. And another buyer that we're actually helping out with, which might be an indication of what's to come for us in Orange County, is we're working with somebody who's coming from LA. They're able to work from home. LA home prices are a little bit more expensive in their area than they are here. So they get a bigger bang for their dollar here, but also it's not as dense. We don't have as many coronavirus cases, at least right now. So I think there's a lot of people that are going to start to head south, whether they're from Northern California or from LA, and coming to our marketplace here in Orange County.
Absolutely. I'm going to touch on something like that too, Lane, with the buyers. We're seeing the first-time buyers are not having 10 and 12 offers to compete with. It's maybe 2 or 3. And we actually have some transactions now where we have VA and FHA buyers under contract. And that was unheard of, 6 months ago. So there's really a shining light for some of these buyers that are well qualified, but we're getting beat out by all cash offers. And I think that the moral of this is life is just moving on. Another example I thought of, we just closed escrow this week for a wonderful client. She had a family home they sold up in the Southgate area. They were renting down here in Fountain Valley. It's a multi-generational home with our client, her husband, and then the parents. They needed a home with a downstairs bedroom. They bought a really nice 2-story home in central Huntington Beach, and they were able to get that, and the financing worked out for them very, very well on that. And we have some other clients who had been renting, their families growing, and they wanted to take advantage of the great interest rates, and it was time. And again, not quite as much competition. They just got into a nice big home in South Huntington Beach. So I think it's a good thing. Who's buying and selling? It's those people that are saying, we've got the income, we're stable, and we want to turn the page and continue with our story of life.
Absolutely. Start to build some equity.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any more? Tyler Song, hey now, how's the pandemic affected home prices? Okay, so talking about home prices and coronavirus here, no, it really hasn't affected. What it has affected is the number of sales. Number of overall sales are down. I think they were down 33% or something like that when we last checked, where normally in a 1 month period, you'll see about 1,600 closed sales. Well, we're seeing 1,000, I think, for the month of April is like a little over 1,000. So less sales, but as far as home prices are concerned, we're year over year up between 1% and 2%. So we're definitely, home prices aren't going down. They're not skyrocketing in value either. They're staying pretty consistent. They're staying pretty strong. And I think a lot of that, as we've alluded to in the past, and even on this call, is due to the fact that there's very low inventory. And I think inventory is going to remain pretty low. So no, we haven't really seen much of an effect on home prices because of the coronavirus pandemic.
That's a great answer, Lane. And I'm just going to ask Stipe to put up our website again that he and Lane have done such a great job putting together and continuing to curate, that we'll keep folks like Tyler and everybody up to date if they use that as a reference point. Moving forward, we will take pride and diligence in making sure the information on here is updated on a regular basis. And I think we're getting close to a little over our 30-minute mark. We're so grateful for the interaction and the extra questions we had today. That's what makes this show so much fun for us to do. Lane, your thoughts?
No, I agree. And you know what? You might be looking at our website right now on the screen, sackandstone.com/coronavirus. We're looking forward to the day when we can drop coronavirus and just put like sackandstone.com/latest news. We're going to still continue to work and update that hub, but just continue to look at that site for now. Stipe, do we have any more questions, or are we? Okay, we do have another question. How do you determine a list price? So if you're sitting down with sellers, they rose their hand, Scott. They said, we want to interview you, or we want to meet with you. Tell me, what's my home worth, or what should we list our price for? How do you determine what you come up with?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, we have to remember the sellers are hiring us to market their home, negotiate the price on their home, and follow through with great customer service to ensure a successful closing at the end. We provide the information and the data based on where the market has been and where we feel the market is going, so that we can together determine the best list price for the home. We remember the house is worth what a buyer is willing to pay and the seller is willing to take, but it's the seller's home and the seller's ultimate decision on the price. We're hired as guides to give as much information, stats, and facts as possible so that we can arrive at that price together. And again, that determining factor is looking at what has recently closed, sold in the area that's most comparable to the client's home in condition, location, upgrade, size, and so forth. But then what we want to make sure we do is we look at what's happening right now. And that's where a lot of people forget. They tend to look in that rearview mirror, but they're not thinking what's happening right now. What is our current competition? If I'm on the market today with your home, who am I competing with? What other homes do the buyers have the option to look at? What other similar things are they shopping for? So we want to make sure that we go out and preview. We know exactly what our current competition is going to be today. And then the last factor is when we determine our price, it may be based on 30, 60 days from now. A lot of the homes today, we're doing significant upgrades, rehabs, and so forth. So we'll determine a list price today, but it's not static. We're going to continue to monitor the market. So when we actually launch the home, when we're finished the project managing, rehab upgrades, et cetera, we're also staying very, very current. So it's a fluid question. I hope that answer helps a little bit. I love answering this question, but keeping in mind at the ultimate end of the day, we provide information to help the seller determine the best price for their home. Lane?
Absolutely. And we have 3 different listing price strategies, right? We have the aspirational pricing strategy. We have the perceived market pricing strategy. We have the event pricing strategy. And just to briefly touch on each one. So aspirational is that, let's say, the market's telling you that your house is worth $1 million, but there's really not a motivation for you or a need for you to have to move next week. and you say, you know what, I'm a seller. I got some really great, bones in this house. I got some great features. There's nothing else for sale in my neighborhood. I'm going to throw it out for $1,050,000 or 1.1 and see what happens, just to test the market. That would be an aspirational. I'm aspiring to get 1.1. The market's not telling me there. If you go with this pricing strategy, your risk having your home set on the market for a long period of time. Maybe you get some offers a little bit lower. Maybe you have to take a price reduction to get to where it ends up selling for. The next pricing strategy is perceived market pricing strategy. So we basically everything that Scott mentioned to getting to that list price, as far as previewing what's currently out there, looking back 6 months, looking ahead over the next 6 months to see where we think prices are going to go, to determine what's considered, market value, is basically, what we determine as far as our perceived marketing strategy or pricing strategy, excuse me. And the last one is event pricing strategy. And that one's kind of a fun one. You see that a lot in Northern California. What they basically do is they purposely price the home 5–10% lower than what the market value is telling you. And they do that on purpose because they want to get multiple offers and start some sort of a bidding war. And when you have multiple offers in a bidding war, it's eventually going to get pushed up to where it's worth it anyways. But when you have multiple offers, you control the terms in the contract, as far as you're not having minimal, if not any, contingencies, and being able to get a quick sale. And let's say you needed a rent back or something like that, you can be able to negotiate that because of all the offers and all the competition you have with an event pricing strategy. So we determine the list price, and then we determine the best strategy moving forward based on that list price.
And something to add to that, first of all, I think you can see our passion for this, because we always want to net our clients the absolute most money given the times in the marketplace and so forth. We could have a whole show just on list price, because again, keeping in mind, every client's goals are different. As Lane said, sometimes there's a time crunch. There's another home that they want to purchase that they need to get to, so forth. There's so many, outlying factors. And another thought, with the event pricing, the way we see it is perceived value is so much about, if I like something and I perceive 2 other people like it as much as I do, emotionally, the value rises. So, that's why the event pricing sometimes, can work. But again, we could dive into this on a whole other show, which maybe we'll do sometime with a lot of Q&A. But hopefully that gives you a general idea of how prices are determined.
Yeah. You know what? Today, there were a lot of great questions today. There was a lot of great participation. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for asking your questions. If you're watching this not live, maybe after you're watching the recording and you still have a question, put it in the comments. We'll get to it for the next call. We'll get to it for next week. Also, if there's something that you found of value that you think somebody else would, find valuable in knowing as well, please share this video if you can. Share our page, like it, give us some love. We love doing this for you. We love providing great information. We're going to continue to do it on a weekly basis. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Scott, any final words?
No, not at all. I just want to again thank our production team for making this happen. We're so grateful for the technology. So we just get to show up, put a mic on, and talk, and hopefully continue to provide value. And let us know how we can do that even more. That's all I've got to say. We're just really grateful.
Until next time.
Bye.